Alright, this little video, hopefully it's really short, is going to go over how to accomplish the last two questions, how to go about it. So really what we're going to do here is to extrapolate from previous data. This here happens to be in cumulative installation of solar. And this here is just the data in an Excel file from this chart here. So we're going to extrapolate, we're going to find an equation in Excel and use that to extrapolate what we would project for 2050, how much solar energy would be in the grid in 2050. So I think this makes sense here, at least to start. This would be the base year starting in 2011. Call that year zero, and that's how many megawatts of installed power there were. Okay, so what I did here was what you've done many times in Excel. I took the data and I graphed it. The solid blue line with the dots is the actual data from the chart, which is right here. The actual data, I just graphed it. And I ran two different models. One, a linear model, and two, an exponential model. Now notice that the exponential model is breaking. It's breaking way above the actual data. And this is a 33% increase yearly. That's what this is representing. And I'm going to go over that a little bit to show you that it's actually, this is not going to work. This is an absurd model. Because I'm looking out, I'm going to be 39 years down here. So year 39, this thing's going to be in the sky, while there's no way you're going to manufacture and install that number of solar panels. So I'll explain why this is absurd. And then this here, the linear model, is a pretty good fit, but it's kind of breaking down versus where the actual number is. And that's due to the fact that in some of the early years here, there wasn't much solar being installed. And lately, there's been more solar being installed per year. So the linear model, maybe we could tweak it a little bit. Maybe we can just look at the last 4 years of data and model that instead of modeling the entire since 2011. So let's go to the exponential here and show you what a 33% exponential growth will do over a 39-year period. Now, this is just an example, okay? Let's say that year zero, whatever that was, 2011 or whatever, this is hypothetical, we started out with 100,000 panels. And then it would grow by 33% per year. So this would be the difference. Remember exponentials, growth factor, constant percentage growth factor. So it'd start out with 100,000. Now it would be reasonable to assume it can grow linearly up to a certain point. But look out here to where it's 38, 39 years. Well, this is getting to be a little ridiculous, right? You would have to, between year 8, 38, and 39, you would have to increase the number of solar panels by, in this case, 1,678,000,000. So that's just simply absurd. There's only 6 billion people on Earth. So this exponential model, things can grow exponentially, but they're not going to continue to grow exponentially. This model is simply an absurd model, and it's going to give you really bad results. So what we're going to do, what you're going to do, is to use these 4 years, and I'll go about showing you how at least to do that. So here is a copy of the Excel file that you have available and will be working with on these last 2 questions. So what we're going to do with solar, the way you're going to model it is just use the last 4 years, 2017, 18, 19, and 20, because there's more solar being installed here, which seems to reflect more of what's going on than if you use the entire set of data. So you'll highlight these 4 years, create a graph, and display a linear equation. And then use that linear equation to answer the questions about solar. Okay, so here now we're going to look at wind. And here is what's in your project folder. And this is just this data translated to an Excel file. And you have this Excel file. It's right next to the other one. And so we're going to look at wind, and we're going to be trying to project how much wind we can expect to have operational in 2050. So we're extrapolating data. Now I ran all this data here, and I created, of course, the blue solid line is the actual installed wind power, cumulative installed wind power. And I ran 2 models. One, an exponential, which you can see is breaking here already. And this is year 20, and you got 2050 as base year 50. So this thing is just going to, again, skyrocket. There's no way in the world you can manufacture that much stuff. And there's the linear model is breaking down a little bit, but it's breaking down because in the last 4 or 5 years, there's been a tremendous amount, there's been a rapid growth. You can see the rate of change in the last 4 or 5 years is much more than it was down here. So you might want to say, well, we're going to move this, try to maybe use these last 4 or 5 years, but there's a problem with wind that there's not with solar. And that's going to affect, and even the American Energy Association, it says this is going to, what this problem is going to affect how much wind power can be installed. There's going to be a lot of wind power installed, but it's not going to grow as fast as we might be led to believe by the data here, because there's a couple problems. And here's one of the problems. And there's a lot of articles on this, so I just pulled a couple just to give you some background. So Germany has the most wind installation of any country in the world, and it's a big deal in Germany. However, they're starting to meet resistance. They don't like them in their backyard, and they don't like them blocking the natural scenery. So while acceptance is high, it's high as long as people can't see them or people can't have them in their backyard, so to speak. And this is also happening in the United States. Boom, there. I was up there and I actually know quite a bit about this because I have some lobstermen who are relatives of mine. But anyhow, in Maine, they're trying to do offshore wind, and they're doing some offshore wind, but they're meeting a lot of resistance. The lobstermen, for example, think that the lobsters will not migrate over the power lines that need to be run back to onshore from offshore. So there's a lot of resistance building to wind, which is going to affect how we look at the data moving forward. So how we look at the data moving forward, we're going to look at that and use this. These are like confounding variables that are going to affect the future, because this is not a small issue. So here again is the Excel file that you have available that you're going to use. For wind, the highlighted area in orange is what you're going to use to create your linear model. So you're only going to use the first 15 base years, which is 2000 to 2015, to create your model. And the reason for that is because this extra growth here that we had in the last 5 years is probably not indicative of what's going to happen because of all the resistance that's shown up. So it's a confounding variables that are affecting how much growth you're going to get. You're still going to get a lot of growth, but it's not going to grow like it has in the recent past. So you're going to highlight these 15 years and find the linear equation that best fits this data. Okay, well, that's it. So I showed up, and I have my, I don't know, it's my new look. It's, I call it my pirate look, so because I'm getting ready to retire someday soon here. Okay, well, enjoy this I hope you enjoyed this project. It was a lot of work to put together. and hope you learned something.